Sean "Diddy" Combs has found himself in the midst of a challenging and highly publicized legal battle, and the case continues to take on new twists. His defense strategy has recently become entangled with allegations of racial bias, as Diddy's legal team claims that his prosecution is influenced by his race. This has sparked significant debate about the intersection of race, power, and celebrity within the legal system, and it's clear that Diddy's case is more than just a standard legal proceeding. It's also a cultural issue that addresses systemic concerns about how black men in positions of power are treated by the legal system. Diddy's legal troubles stem from serious federal charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking. These charges are connected to allegations that Diddy used an escort service to transport male escorts across state lines to have sex with his girlfriends. Specifically, one of the sex trafficking charges against him comes under the Federal Mann Act, a law passed in 1910 that makes it illegal to transport someone across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. Diddy's defense team has filed a motion seeking the dismissal of one of these charges, arguing that the law is being unfairly used against him because of its racist origins and his status as a prominent black man. In their motion, Diddy's lawyers argue that the Mann Act, which was originally passed to prevent the white slave trade, has a troubling history rooted in racial prejudice. The law was enacted during a time of moral panic in the United States, particularly regarding black men's relationships with white women. Diddy's defense suggests that the law has been historically used to target black men, and they claim that its application in his case is part of a larger pattern of racial discrimination. They point out that the law was originally called the White Slave Traffic Act and was aimed at restricting black men's sexuality, particularly in relation to interracial relationships. In making this argument, Diddy's lawyers also reference the case of Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight boxing champion, who was convicted under the Mann Act in the early 20th century for transporting a white woman across state lines. Johnson's conviction was widely regarded as racially motivated, and Diddy's legal team is seeking to draw a parallel between his case and Johnson's. That Diddy's legal team claims that his behavior, involving the use of an escort service, is culturally accepted in many parts of American society and should not be criminalized. They argue that using escorts, whether male or female, is common and often occurs in the entertainment industry, especially for high-profile figures like Diddy. They contend that what Diddy is being accused of is not an unusual or extraordinary crime, but rather a personal matter that shouldn't be subject to such severe legal scrutiny, especially considering how widespread the practice is. Their argument is that if the person involved were white or less famous, it's possible they wouldn't face prosecution at all. The defense also points to the fact that the head of the escort service Diddy allegedly used has been featured in media outlets, including a Showtime reality series, as evidence that such services are part of the broader cultural landscape and not inherently criminal. This is not the first time that Diddy's defense team has made racial arguments in the case. One of Diddy's attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, previously suggested that the investigation against Diddy was part of an effort to bring down a successful black man. Agnifilo's comments were controversial and led to a sharp response from prosecutors, who rejected the notion that race was a factor in the case. Prosecutors, led by Damian Williams, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, have countered the defense's racial arguments by asserting that Diddy's actions were far more serious than what his lawyers suggest. They claim that Diddy used his fame and influence to coerce women into engaging in sex acts with male escorts. They further allege that he directed these encounters, sometimes recorded them, and used the footage to threaten the women, suggesting that Diddy's conduct was criminal and exploitative, not merely a case of an ordinary sexual arrangement. The prosecution's view is that Diddy's actions were far beyond any notion of acceptable or common behavior. They argue that he used fraud, force, and coercion to manipulate the women involved, and the charges reflect the serious nature of his alleged actions. If convicted of the more serious charges, Diddy could face a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison. However, the defense is focusing on a lesser charge under the Mann Act, which they argue is much easier to challenge. This charge involves the transportation of individuals with the intent that they engage in prostitution. Although the Mann Act charge carries a lower maximum sentence, 10 years, Diddy's defense team has pushed for it to be dismissed entirely, claiming that it doesn't apply to his actions. The case also involves accusations from Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, who recently made headlines by announcing her pregnancy with her new husband, Alex Fine. Cassie has accused Diddy of forcing her to engage in sex acts with male escorts over the course of their relationship. These allegations are serious, and they have contributed to the overall gravity of the charges against Diddy. Cassie's accusations have been central to the case, and her claims that she was coerced into participating in these acts have been used by prosecutors to argue that Diddy's behavior was not consensual, but exploitative. Diddy's legal team, however, disputes these claims, asserting that Cassie was not a victim and that their relationship was one of mutual consent. The defense team argues that Cassie's relationship with Diddy was personal and consensual, and they assert that the women involved in the case should not be treated as victims simply because they were in relationships with him. This argument is part of a broader strategy by Diddy's legal team to downplay the severity of the charges and to challenge the characterization of the women as victims of trafficking. They argue that these women were his girlfriends and that there was no criminal activity involved in their interactions with him. In addition to the legal arguments, Diddy's case has been complicated by a shakeup in his legal team. One of his lead attorneys, Anthony Rico, filed a motion to withdraw from the case, citing ethical concerns. Rico stated that he could no longer continue representing Diddy under the American Bar Association's standards for criminal justice. His withdrawal adds another layer of complexity to the case, as Diddy now faces the challenge of replacing a key member of his legal team at a critical point in the proceedings. Rico's departure follows closely on the heels of Diddy's legal team's efforts to have certain charges dismissed based on racial discrimination, further raising the stakes for Diddy's defense. This shakeup in the legal team could potentially slow down the process and make it harder for Diddy to mount a successful defense. With so much public attention on the case, the stakes are high not just for Diddy's future, but for how the legal system will handle issues of race, power, and celebrity in the future. The ongoing debate about whether race is a factor in the case is likely to remain a key issue throughout the proceedings. As the case moves forward, it will be interesting to see if Diddy's defense team can successfully argue that the charges against him are racially motivated, or if the prosecution can prove that his conduct was criminal regardless of the racial dynamics at play. Ultimately, the outcome of Diddy's case will have far-reaching implications, not just for him personally, but for how legal cases involving celebrities and racial issues are handled in the future. With the withdrawal of his attorney, ongoing motions to dismiss charges, and continued debate over the racial dynamics at play, it's clear that Diddy's legal battle is far from over. Whether or not the defense's racial arguments will gain traction remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: this case will continue to dominate headlines and spark conversation about race, power, and the legal system. Sean Combs retained me as his counsel, and I have served in this capacity since the time of our engagement. A notice of appearance was filed in court on September 29, 2024, confirming my role. The motion for withdrawal, which I am filing, is in compliance with SDNY local court rules. This withdrawal will allow Sean Combs to proceed with his defense, move forward with jury selection, and begin trial without delay. The motion to withdraw follows discussions with lead counsel, Mark Ageo. The local rule requires that an application for withdrawal be supported by an affidavit or other documentation providing satisfactory reasons. In this case, attorney-client privilege is paramount, so I will keep the reasons for my withdrawal brief. I have provided Sean Combs with the highest level of legal representation, as expected by the court. However, I can no longer continue to represent him in accordance with ABA standards for criminal justice. There are various reasons an attorney may choose to withdraw from a case, such as a breakdown in the attorney-client relationship, personal issues affecting an attorney's practice, or conflicts of interest. While some on social media speculate that I am withdrawing because I believe the case is unwinnable or that new information has surfaced, the truth is that there are many reasons an attorney might withdraw from a case. It's important to recognize that the reason for withdrawal is not always tied to the case's merits or the client's defense. When an attorney withdraws, it means they are formally ending their representation of the client and removing themselves from the case. This can be due to a conflict of interest, ethical concerns, or a breakdown in the attorney-client relationship. An attorney might find it difficult to represent a client effectively due to personal issues, conflicting interests, or other professional concerns. Some might think I'm withdrawing because I believe the case is doomed, but there are often more complex reasons behind such decisions. As a case progresses, issues like communication difficulties or disagreements about legal strategy can arise between an attorney and client. These problems might lead to a lawyer deciding to withdraw because they feel they can no longer serve the client's best interests. Additionally, trust and cooperation between an attorney and client are essential for effective legal representation. If that trust is compromised, it can become impossible to provide the quality of counsel that is expected in criminal defense. As attorneys, we are bound by strict ethical guidelines. If we realize that we cannot represent a client effectively, whether due to personal challenges, a breakdown in the relationship, or a conflict of interest, we have an ethical obligation to withdraw. This ensures that the client receives proper representation, and it maintains the integrity of the legal process. In many cases, the reasons behind an attorney's withdrawal are not publicly disclosed. Personal reasons, like health issues or family matters, could be factors in an attorney's decision to withdraw. While these factors may not be disclosed in public filings, they can impact an attorney's ability to continue representing their client. Furthermore, an attorney might withdraw because the client is not complying with instructions or failing to provide necessary information, which complicates the representation. Regarding this case, some may assume that I am withdrawing for personal reasons, but I am under no obligation to share these with the public or the court. It is possible that my decision is influenced by personal circumstances that impact my ability to continue representing Sean Combs. Just as I am obligated to protect my client's confidential information, I am not required to disclose my personal reasons for withdrawing. These reasons may involve health issues, family concerns, or other private matters. It is important to recognize that these factors can affect an attorney's ability to provide effective representation. It's crucial not to jump to conclusions that my withdrawal is directly linked to the client's guilt or innocence. Attorneys provide counsel based on their professional expertise, but personal circumstances can also play a significant role in the decision to withdraw. Speculating on the motivations behind a lawyer's withdrawal can lead to misunderstandings and confusion. The decision to step down from a case is often much more complicated than it might appear on the surface. When an attorney withdraws, they typically file a formal motion with the court, as I have done here. This motion informs the court of the decision and ensures the client is made aware of the change in legal representation. In most cases, the client must consent to the termination of the attorney-client relationship, and they will need to find new legal counsel. After withdrawal, the client must secure new representation, which may lead to delays in the case. As the motion for withdrawal has already been filed, the next steps will involve the court reviewing and potentially approving the withdrawal. The court may need to address the situation to ensure the client's rights are protected during the transition to new counsel. This is done to avoid any further delays in the case, particularly during critical phases such as jury selection and trial. It's important to recognize that while withdrawal may lead to delays, the client is not left without legal representation. Sean Combs has other attorneys representing him in this case, which may prevent significant delays in the proceedings. However, this situation serves as a reminder that legal cases can be unpredictable, and changes in representation can impact the timeline of a case. In conclusion, it is vital not to jump to conclusions regarding the reasons behind an attorney's withdrawal. There are many possible factors, some personal, some professional, that could lead to such a decision. While speculation may be natural, it's essential to understand that ethical and professional obligations guide the decision to withdraw. These reasons may not always be tied to the client's case or the attorney's assessment of the case's merits. As the case progresses, it's important to respect the privacy of the individuals involved and refrain from making assumptions based on incomplete information. Everyone involved in a legal case deserves due process, and understanding the complexities behind an attorney's decision to withdraw can help clarify the situation. For those looking to stay informed, I encourage you to continue following the developments of this case. If you enjoy content like this, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications for updates. Thank you for your attention, and I appreciate your engagement with this important legal matter.